Yeah. So what happened was I started because everybody was locked up and a lot of people were bitching and whining on Nextdoor and Facebook and stuff. I started connecting with neighbors I'd never met before, and everybody was, you see it. It's still happening now. People are jumping onto these platforms, going, "Why are there? What's this mess?" And then, people start talking about it. So I met with a few neighbors who live around Bridge Housing, and we were discussing things that could be done, and we were writing letters to Bonin, and we were talking to his assistant, who left, Nisa. Before her was Allison, then it was Nisa, and now it's Dexter, who's the assistant for the bridge, saying, look, this is crazy. You guys need to do something. There's a lot of crime. There's crazy vagrancy. There's a lot of violence. And we were all discussing, and I'm sure you've seen there are a lot of theories out there, especially from people who are just fed up and say, just load them all up in a truck and ship them out to the desert, and all kinds of ridiculousness. And that's not a solution. And I said to my neighbors, I said, why, instead of everybody coming up with solutions and bitching and moaning amongst themselves, why doesn't anybody go down and talk to the homeless people and ask them what they think? Are they getting helped? Because we're spending a lot of money and it doesn't seem like anybody's getting help. So that's what we started doing. Probably as COVID started going down in March or so, we started venturing out there as people started getting vaccinated, and the fire department was going down there offering vaccinations to the homeless people down there, as well as in Bridge Housing. We just started walking around and talking to people, just going, hey, we're your neighbors. We want to know what's going on with you. Have you been offered help? Has anybody offered you housing? Are you interested in housing? And so we started doing that, and then we started reporting to Bonin, through Dexter, first through Nisa and also through Dexter. And some of my neighbors also started contacting Parks and Rec, Beaches and Harbors, LA Sanitation, LAPD, and getting on meetings and that sort of stuff. And I started counting tents, and some of my neighbors started counting tents. And basically they were reporting to them saying, well, we see this many tents, and what's going on? We found out that St. Joseph's has the exclusive contract to provide services for the homeless. We noticed that LASA was just driving through in the SUVs, handing out ready-made meals and water, not doing really any servicing. They were making excuses that, well, it's COVID and we can't do anything. And we said, well, these people are all getting vaccinated. Why are you not helping get them into housing? Bridge Housing they kept claiming there was 100 people in there out of 154. I counted what I could see because I see it every day. I noticed the same faces almost every day. And to me, there was about 50 or 60 people in there. That has changed now. The St. Joseph started going down. And I know that some of the people I work with came up with a plan to start in June, which they did called Connect to Services. They said, hey, St. Joseph's, you guys need to actually talk to these people and offer them service. So why don't we set up a table and just say, hey, come down here. If you're interested in talking to a service provider, we'll connect you with them. If you're interested in housing, we can connect you with that. If you're interested in just charging your phone, we have a charging center. If you want to talk to mental health, if you want to talk to whatever. So that started in the beginning of June. It was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 9 in the morning to like 1 in the afternoon or so. And coincidentally, Joe Buscaino, who's running for mayor, came down and spoke that day, the very first day we started. And it was a pretty interesting show. And then the sheriff came down too. We didn't know about that. We didn't know about any of this plan. So all these things sort of coalesced at the same time. And I think how it happened, coincidence, whatever, I don't know. Obviously, Villanueva is taking advantage of a political situation, as politicians do. He's got his problems. A lot of them have been documented. But hey, I think it was a good kick in the ass to the council member. He came down and called him out and said, do something about this, which is what we've been saying. Help these people. Help them get into shelter. Help them put people into the Bridge Housing. You built it for that. Why isn't it full? We kept saying that and asking these questions, and finally things started happening. So yeah, to the credit of everyone, I've seen St. Joseph out there working their asses off, and I give them all the credit in the world. It's not an easy job. I totally understand that. Super complicated problem. We talked to several people and helped push them into accepting housing, including the 75-year-old rabbi, Miguel, who was living down there, and several other guys that were older. And some of them are living in Bridge now. Ones that I recognize that I've talked to on the boardwalk, they're now living in Bridge housing, or they've moved into Project Room Key, and that's great. And so I'd say about 75% of the people that were on the boardwalk have been moved into temporary housing. The problem.
So this is the prime example, and you are the embodiment of citizen activism, grassroots. You weren't employed to be there. You were looking out for your neighborhood. You're doing all these extra things. You are the squeaky wheel. You're the people who made it. Finally, look at what's going on here as crime was literally bursting into fires day after day. My question is has the councilman ever thanked you for any of your efforts?
No, and I don't need his thanks. And in fact, he doesn't even acknowledge us. He basically takes credit for everything, which is fine. I mean, the whole plan of zones that he has, that was something that my neighbor came up with. She basically broke it down into zones, and she said to them, why don't you just work in zones? Go first from this block to this block. That'll be one zone. And then we counted in zones. And so he took that and took it all as his plan. I don't really care. I don't give a shit who gets credit. All I give a shit is that people are getting help. Because when we were talking to them, most of them said, no, I haven't been talked to, or I have, and I filled out the paperwork, and it's really complicated, and then I don't hear anything from anybody. And they get frustrated and disillusioned, which I completely understand. You know, the biggest problem for me, though, is all these plans ignore the people that are mentally unstable, that have drug addiction, that are what they call housing resistant, which housing advocates deny exists. But I've talked to them and I say, what are you going to do about the people who say, screw you, I'm not interested, I don't want to go anywhere with rules? And they say, well, we just keep talking to them until they change their mind. And I'm all, some of these people are violent. Some of these people you can't have a conversation with. What do you do about them? Well, we just keep talking to them until they change their mind. I'm all, there are some people that probably need to be institutionalized and put on meds, because you can't, they're walking around and they're in danger of hurting themselves or hurting other people, and you're not doing anything. And I know people are talking about, you know, putting more money into mental health, and there was a ballot initiative, I think it was Prop H or Measure H, wasn't a ballot initiative.
Yes, right.
To raise money for mental health services. And from what I've seen and read and been told, there's been the county, which runs the mental health service, has been sitting on close to $1 billion for several years. They're not building new beds. I've talked to some of the mental health guys down in Rose Avenue parking lot, and I said, I know a woman who was gang raped, I was told, by one of the homeless people, and I've seen her on the boardwalk for months, and you can't have a conversation with her. She's not in the same world we are, and there's numerous people like that. She's being abused, physically assaulted. Why aren't you guys doing something to get her off of the streets? Because she needs help. And they said, we can't help someone unless they ask for it. And I'm all, what if they're not capable of asking?
Well, Shawn, this, you know, what's wonderful about doing this recall show is when conversations shift in ways you're not 100% expecting. And so we're going to have a feature that will be every week when we do this, and it's called Hometown Heroes. And you're the first one, my friend. I want to thank you very much for the work you do and what you've done, and keep us posted, will you? What's going on in Oceanfront Walk, and we'll bring you back.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm no hero. I just saw a need and wanted to help. I'm tired of, you know, people on different political agendas trying to drive the narrative and claiming they represent, you know, the homeless. They don't. I don't. The homeless represent themselves. Go talk to them. Everybody's got a unique story, and they need help, and they should get help. But our government is failing, and we need to hold them accountable. And the best way to do that is go out and vote. You know, Mike Bonin was elected with less than 10% of the registered voters in our district. It's ridiculous. We can defeat these people and put people in who are actually going to do something to help fix these problems. That's the biggest problem. Everyone can do that. Everyone can go out and vote.
So we all can be hometown heroes.